Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. And that question comes at the very right time. Why am I saying that it is coming at the very right time? Tomorrow, it is 9th October. That means Uganda is celebrating the 61st independence anniversary. We got independence on 9th October 1962. So when you try to count the years that have passed, that is 61 years. 61 years to a human being, you're considered as an elder. You realize that for the 61 years, things that you've not achieved in 61 years, even if you do what, you cannot achieve much. Because the 61 years, it is expected that within 50 years, you should have achieved something visible to make you like successful or to consider yourself as a successful person. Now, when you bring it to a state status, when you achieve independence, you're considered a state, sovereign state. That is why countries are named sovereign states. When you look at international law, the principles they consider statehood. You look at things like a nation. Once a nation is declared as an independent state, there are things that are expected of you. There are fundamental objectives and principles that come along with the independence status. But when you look at Uganda, colonialism, we were told, because these are just hearsay stories, that everything used to go to Britain because that was the rise of Uganda, the British. They left here in 1962. But when you realize that, when you look at the history now, before 1962, once taxes were corrected in Uganda, they used to be sent directly to London, to the Queen by then. And then after deducting everything, now they send back to what they used to say. Now you can use this to build roads. Now you can use this to pay the chiefs. But remember, they used to bring these incomes in form of gifts. They used to bring these guys mirrors. They used to bring these guys like beads. They used to bring these guys like things like knives, salt, sugar, because in return of the taxes they used to collect. But when you look at the current status, 1962, when we obtained our independence, you look at things they were supposed to change drastically. What do I mean? Now everything you collect it yourself. You collect it yourself. But now when you look at the hands that kept in what you term as neocolonialism, where you find that the fundamental companies that are based here in Africa, they are all owned by white countries. The western countries, the American countries, the so-called the Western countries. Look at the big companies in Africa: Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Total, Shell, all these companies, they're owned by the white countries. But remember, they are the main stakeholders in the economies of our country. But when you look at what their contribution, it is just trying to ruin our economies, because they come, they impose their objectives onto our economic objectives, and they try to ruin and exploit our fundamental structures that we've placed that we've put in place to develop ourselves. Because in economics we have something called economic growth and economic development. After economic growth, you're trying to build something. Once you develop the systems in place, but do we have the capacity to build these structures that include or that combine economic development and economic growth within our country? And the answer is no. The issue is not all about neocolonialism. I'll go back to the root cause of every problem in Africa, and that is corruption. Corruption. When you look at the taxes that are collected in Africa, for example, in my country, Uganda, 100% of the taxes that are collected, over 50, they will tell you that all that money was wasted by corrupt leaders. The institutional leaders of these collecting tax bodies, they will collect the money, but what will be used to facilitate, to fund the budget which has been drawn, it will be far different from the money which was collected. And what will the country do if it cannot pay off its budget? The only solution will run now to borrowing from the outside countries. That is how you end up running to the World Bank. Yes, it is a bank for the whole states of the world, which are member states. But remember, this is not where you're supposed to be running for your sustenance. But rather, you should first develop your home with further fundamental structures that will bring in harmony and reconciliation, in trying to look at the sources and the fundamental sources. I'm talking about fundamental sources that will facilitate your budget, and then you can run out to look for money to now try to add on. But here you find that 60% of the budget is facilitated by the loans gotten from the outside countries. You're running to USA, you're running to Australia, you're running to France, you're running to Germany, trying to look out for sources of income to facilitate your own budget, to build roads, and after you double your loan facilitation. When will you think of developing yourself if the budget is relying on outside loans? So I will say that the problem of my country is not neocolonialism, because neocolonialism, it comes with advantages to some extent. The people that are employed in those companies are not foreigners. These are people based here. 90%. Only the expertise. These are the technical personnels. They are the only people that come along with the company. But my major parts, they are filled up by our own individuals. But these people will not look at the benefits of these companies, but rather they will look at it as a chance to eat. They will start now using that gap to ask them for more money so that they can satisfy their stomachs, but not using it as a chance to now look at an investment which is bringing development, which is bringing economic growth in a country. But every chance one gets, he's trying to fill his stomach, not for the satisfaction of the state. So you look at that, it is a root cause of every problem in Africa. That is why we're having potholes. You've had some of the weird confessions that Kampala, which is the capital city of Uganda, is a pothole city. Wherever you move, it is a pothole. We've been declared a pothole city of the country. Why? Because money is just running in people's stomachs, not building the state. You don't expect development like that. You don't expect economic growth like that when you still have individualistic characters in the system. In the system, you first get rid of the individualistic characters. Then you can talk about other issues like neocolonialism. Let us first get rid of corruption before we find solutions for corruption in Africa. We cannot start opening our mouth to speak about other things like neocolonialism. Let us first develop the love for our countries. First talk about the issues that concern ourselves. Because if we have corrupt leaders, trust me, nothing will work out for good in our countries. But if we resolve this problem, if we try to recover Sit down on the round table, try to discuss things which are going to build patriotism. Let's first love our countries first. Let's put them first and then look at other things. Once you love your country, you're not going to eat that 100 million to be used to facilitate a hospital building somewhere, or to construct a road going to a certain place, because that is one way of facilitating economic growth and development. So let's first look at the fundamentals. Fundamentals are the foundations. Once the foundations are dug deep, even the building will go high as far as the sky is. But once we don't look at the fundamentals, every building we try to raise will still collapse. It will still collapse. My brothers and sisters, tomorrow my country, Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, we are celebrating the 61st independence anniversary. But trust me, we still have leaders here. The youth are not benefiting from the political structures of our country. Everyone as a stakeholder of the economy. Nothing is being given. Nothing is being given. We are trying to fight the fundamentals, and we are trying to shy away from the fundamentals, and now we are focusing on neocolonialism. Are we having white presidents? No. Are we having white prime ministers? No. Are we having the institutional leaders of these systems, like Uganda Revenue Authority, that is considered the institution supposed to be collecting taxes? Is it led by a white man? The answer is no. All these guys leading these institutions, leading these countries, they are all Africans. They are all Africans. I don't know of any country in Africa that is led by a white man. There is no country. But we have failed to first address the core. Colonialism can come after. Once we've addressed the patriotism, that you're not supposed to eat your country's money because you love your country, then we can go ahead and say now the neocolonialism factors can come and we provide solutions to them. But me, as a person now, this is my personal opinion, I don't think neocolonialism is having a big disadvantage to us as Africa, but rather to some extent, it is an opportunity for us to make money, because you realize that these companies are the biggest employers of the African people. Most African people are employed by these companies that are owned by white countries. You realize that also extending their democracy in Africa. Maybe that is one of the things that I might seem to be different or be negative concerning neocolonialism. Democracy was not a thing for Africans. Democracy, I repeat, it was not a system for Africans, because Africans can do anything to defeat all potential status of democracy. After 5 years, we are voting. Even 2026, we are going to be holding our elections. But we already know the results. For the past 20 years, we come to elections when we know what the results will be. And we don't have anything to change. Reason being, someone corrupted the system. Africans, that is why kingdoms were working, because there was nothing like voting your king. We used to have kingdoms. You remember those that studied history, the South African history. the Shaka Zulus, they had strong empires. Why? Because they were not holding elections. They were not holding elections. You realize that these fundamental systems that have been brought here, this is not our thing. Democracy is not a thing for Africa. Look at the strong kingdoms that we had in Africa. They were not voting their They said we are not exporting labor, but we are going to export goods. They said they started developing industrialism. That is why we have the major industrial revolution in China. Why? Because they embraced their own thing. But when you ask any graduate in Africa, what do you want to do? I want to go to America. I want to go to England. I want to go to... Why are you going outside? Instead of keeping here, build your own country, build systems, advocate for change that you want. If you do not wake up and advocate for the change that you want, trust me, no one will wake up and advocate on your behalf. But rather the voices of the few will not drive the change. But if we work together, if we build stronger together, trust me, you will definitely have the change that you desire, that you deserve, and what you desire to see in your country will definitely come true. As we celebrate our 61st independence anniversary, I want to say this. Africa, we need to wake up. Our leaders are sleeping. This is the time for the youth to take over. This is the time for we, the young people, to redefine the true nature, the true love for Africa. Africa is the richest continent on the earth. Look at every big mineral. The expensive minerals are all dug in the African land. Look at the gold mines. Look at the oil wells in Nigeria. Why do you think there is war in DRC? Even if you do what? DRC will not get rid of wars. Why? Because that's what the whites want. If DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, now stabilizes, you will see a different Africa. Why? Because it is the wealthiest country on the earth with almost every mineral. But all these minerals are being stolen by white countries. That is why the UN cannot get out of DRC. The UN cannot get out of DRC. They have stationed their offices in each and every trying to extend their dominion in Congo. Yes. Why? Because they want the country to remain unstable such that they continue to steal the minerals and develop their countries. London is beautiful the way it is because of African resources. Look at the countries where the slaves are the ones that built these countries. But nevertheless, we shall not keep quiet. We shall continue to speak until everyone hears our voices. For God and my country, I choose to submit. Thank you very much for listening to me. And I really appreciate you all. And I continue to wish us a very, very wonderful engagement. And thank you very much, my brother, for such wonderful opportunity. I'm so grateful and I'm so humbled to have this opportunity to share my views concerning the neocolonialism, its factors that it and the disadvantages and advantages it has had in our country. But I continue to say patriotism and getting rid of corruption in our countries. It should be the priority. Thank you, and thank you very much.